Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 167. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
Jay.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Got your head to the sides and I'm angry.
So what'd you get up to doing this week? What'd you get down to, man? What'd you get up to? Anything fun? Anything interesting you want to tell everyone? I know you just got back from a very boring trip to Delaware.
Well, the weather was a little unfortunate. Let's say it was low to mid 70s, mostly very cloudy. We never went to the beach. It was very rough on the ocean, and we just spent our times just doing other things. There's a lot of different kind of things you can do. We're right on the bay. The kids got into the crabbing, my nieces and nephews, so they were really fixated on that, which was great for years to come to know. So that was really cool to see, and just a lot of different kind of, just shopping and just different kind of food places. I finally ate and drank at Dogfish Head Brewery, which was a really cool experience.
And thank you very much for my Dogfish Head whiskey that you got me.
Yeah, so I did not know until recently that they actually did their own spirits, and you can't usually find that anywhere but in Delaware. So I had to try whiskey, and I was pleasantly surprised because usually a lot of local whiskeys I don't care for. They are a little too woody for my liking. Mm-hmm. Now this one does have a touch of oak,
so you don't want
that I think you will like.
So you don't like a little bit of wood in your whiskey? You don't like a little bit of...
But no, you like a lot of wood.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I like this a lot, and I was really happy with it. I had to buy a bottle for you because I thought it'd be a really nice whiskey for you to enjoy, and it's a nice little bottle too. So definitely check them out, and if you're in Delaware, try and seek out their spirits. They're very good.
Well, for me, I had Logan for an entire week. It was great. She spent a lot of time with my mom. It was really my mom's week with her. They did a whole lot of stuff.
Fantastic.
But I got to take her to the aquarium on Sunday. That was a ton of fun. But this was her first week of school, Jay. So she started school on Tuesday, and she couldn't look more adorable. But she, of course, had a little bit of anxiety about going, which meant that my final night with her was literally spent with her. And my daughter does this. It's so adorable. And by adorable, I mean infuriating. And I want to smack her. But you can't, because that's not how you deal with kids in 2019. Yeah. So I'm sleeping, and I just feel like a poke on my forehead. And that's how my kid wakes me up. Boom, 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 right on my forehead. It's terrible. Like I'm in a fish tank and she's fucking tapping on it to get me to move.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Find a happy place, find a happy place, find a happy place.
And I look at her and I'm like, what? And she's like, my music shut off, because we play music for her while she sleeps because she has a problem with not having some sort of interaction with stuff. And I was like, fine. And she's like, can I sleep with you? And I was like, no, it's a couch. She climbs in and sleeps with me anyway. And then, proceeds to just have the worst morning where she's just complaining about stomach cramps and her stomach hurts and she can't go to school and all this stuff. I ultimately made her go, and she did wind up having a good time at school. But, she's 5, man. She's going to be 6 soon. So, her starting kindergarten, it's a big milestone. And she couldn't look more adorable in her yellow dress that she picked out herself, to wear for her first day. And, I'm just extremely happy that she's starting school and stuff like that. Because,
love it.
Yeah, love it. But anyway, that's really all I was up to this week, Jay. Just had a good time taking her to the aquarium and trying to teach her about fish while she was like, come on, we're going to go walk through everything. Daddy, stop reading everything. Because I'm that guy. I'm the guy that when I go to places, museums, aquariums, zoos, I read everything. I love learning. I don't know what it is. I
That's why you have a master's degree.
Yeah, I'm good.
And I'm far from that.
I'm good at retaining information, and I like retaining new information. Other than that, man, I donated some money this week to Dorsal. So there's a lot of these like charities like popping up, and what each of them are doing is they are selling bracelets, and every bracelet you buy goes towards like cleaning up.
I noticed this bracelet on you. I haven't asked you about it yet.
Trash Island and stuff in the Pacific and stuff. So cleaning up the
right up your alley, brother.
Right.
We just talked about this. Last episode.
I donated some money, and I haven't heard back from them, but I have been reaching out to some of these oceanic charities, and we might be doing a charity fundraiser for them if we get responses. But that's only if we get responses.
Yeah. Please do. I mean, I would love to do that.
Other podcasting news that we have as far as the show goes, Jay, the month of August, this month of 2019, we had record-breaking download numbers. More people have listened to us, according to the numbers that I receive, than ever before. So I want to thank
Big time.
everybody who listens to us. I want to thank all the new people that are listening to us right now.
Thank you so much.
And at the end of the show, I'm going to beg you to leave me a fucking iTunes review, you bastards. Like, look, here's the way I see it.
Please do. iTunes review, 5 stars. Talk to us. Hit us up.
It's
let us know what you're
free
thinking.
entertainment. So if you listen to 3 episodes,
true.
please at least leave us an iTunes review. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a prize incentive for the month of September for people who do leave us
And we
iTunes
have some
reviews.
good prizes.
Yeah. So I got some good prizes that have been sitting around for a little bit of time. Time to dust them off and start sending them out.
I can't wait.
Jay, we got to get into what are you watching?
What are you watching?
What are we watching?
He's trying to watch some illegal channel.
Always watching.
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
All right, Jay, so what'd you get down to watching this week? Did you watch anything that you'd like to talk about? If you fucking mention that you finished The Americans, so help me God, I will slap you.
Slap me, bitch.
No. Okay, you finished The
I
Americans.
finished it.
Good.
This is it. I don't have to talk about it
Good.
anymore.
Was it worth the fucking journey?
Yes, it was.
Okay, good.
It was fantastic. I loved it.
Everybody go catch a show that's been finished for
Yeah.
6 years. Anyway.
And then Glow. I finished Glow. I'm a little late on that, but
Yeah,
it was
you are.
a very delightful show. Still, they know their wheelhouse. I
But
think.
was I right? Better than the second season. Far better.
Then the second season, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very character driven. I love it.
It was. And I thought it was smart having it set in Vegas. It was
Yeah.
really good. I thought it was very solid. And a lot of boobs. So that was, but in a non-sexual way, which was very nice to see, and it was fun to see the girls on screen again. And then also, we can talk about Mindhunter.
Yes,
we both loved the first season.
We
and
actually
season
wound up
2 just
talking a
came
little bit
out.
about it while talking about David Fincher, who's the executive producer of Mindhunter, the show creator, directed the first episode of it and everything like that. Very Fincher-esque, very much reminiscent of like Zodiac and stuff like that. But I absolutely Mindhunter season 2. I'm not saying it blew season 1 out of the water, but it was far more engaging, and it definitely was more linear. It had a story to tell you about, Holden Ford and Agent Tetch.
Yeah, and it definitely the one thing that bothered me, which I don't want to say is a spoiler, but at the very opening episode, our main guy is dealing with some severe anxiety issues,
and it
has not been addressed.
It comes up one other time in that season, and that's it. I understand.
And that was a surprise because I was waiting for something to come up.
Right.
Something, anything. I don't care what the
Especially
fuck it was,
when he
but
goes
anything.
back and has an interaction with that same person again.
Correct.
And nothing happens.
Nothing. That was my only slight on the whole season. But I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I love it.
I think
so immersed.
I think that is a seed that they are planting for later on
Perhaps.
in the series. Just like Brian Tetch's son is a seed that they are planting for later on in the series.
I love that
as
angle.
well. So did I.
think that was really well handled. I thought it was very touchy and delicate subject matter to have come up. And I think they did it in a very understated, very smart way to let that simmer and then deal with it more in season 3.
So first off, obviously, it's kind of about the development of the FBI's behavioral science program and everything like that. Something I'm extremely interested in. They're doing interviews on serial killers, spree killers, and all this stuff.
What era is this again?
1980s.
80s, yeah.
So, so it's about this stuff that I'm extremely interested in. But they did a great job in developing these characters and stuff like that. Especially this season, Tetch. Like, Tetch was not the character that he was in the first season, where he was this very he rolled his eyes at Holden Ford a lot. And in this season, he's finding the balance between being his boss and being the guy who has to let Holden off his leash at times. And I found that dynamic very, very compelling. Also, with Tetch dealing with his home life as well, and bringing in the Atlanta child murders into this season, I truly liked, and also teasing BTK through the first season and the second season, because it kind of, in both of those cases, that is instances where the FBI behavioral analysts failed in a way. In a way, these are minor failures for them, and to kind of surround the season not around their successes, but kind of showing something in which they weren't listened to, or they failed, or they didn't progress the science enough by that point for people to listen to them. It kind of puts you in the sense of why they're needed, right? Because you want to believe that Holden is right in what he's saying, because he's our main character and stuff like that. But is he right? It's an extremely compelling thing, and I absolutely loved every minute of it.
Yeah, man. It's a great.
If you're not watching Mindhunter, it's literally the way I was describing it to Jay is, this is my new True Detective. Oh,
absolutely.
True Detective season 1, Mindhunter season 1, Mindhunter season 2. These are the true crime shows that I want to watch.
I really can't believe that anybody who was into True Detective would not be. It would not be into this. It's right up its alley.
If you haven't watched it, because I know Netflix absolutely sucks at their marketing and telling you when new stuff's out.
They're horrendous.
It's there, so definitely check it out. Me and Jay both endorse it extremely highly, and the Fincher influence, David Fincher influence is all over it.
Oh, absolutely.
The cinematography feels like Fincher. It's 100%. So well done.
Yeah, he has that touch on it. But also, I'm gonna promise everybody, I'm gonna have reviews, quick reviews, for next episode for Good Boys, Ready or Not, and The Peanut Butter Falcon. 3 movies I've been really looking forward to seeing. I just haven't gotten around to.
If we have time.
Either way, I will mention it next episode.
So other than that, I got down with watching 13 Reasons Why season 3.
Yeah, man. I know you gave up on it.
You're not with this series.
I saw the first season. I was okay with it, and then I was impressed with what it was trying to do. And then I watched the first episode or 2 of the season 2, and I couldn't do it anymore. So it was noticeably way too sappy and soapy for me.
I get where you're coming from.
I just couldn't do it.
It is an extremely emotional heavy show, and when I say emotional heavy, it is that as well, but it's melodramatic, right? It's very hard to believe that these 16 and 17-year-old kids are dealing with all this stuff at year after year. However, what I find refreshing about it is this is stuff that does go on with teenagers today, and sure, it's unrealistic that these main characters would deal with all these problems at once, but this is stuff that kids do have to deal with. So each of these kids that are dealing with each of their problems, it's kind of like an allegory for someone else out there who's dealing with it, and they just want to show a spotlight on it. It's very much why the show starts off with a PSA, where if you're having trouble, contact this number. Every episode has the number listed on there. Go to this website, get help, tell an adult, all this stuff.
Of course. And
they're literally warning you about, don't do what we do in the show. Don't keep secrets. Don't hide stuff, talk to people. That's how things get better. But also I love the show, and especially this show, there is a storyline about people who have been sexually assaulted, taking back their right, taking back their power, power, taking back their freedom, and not feeling like a victim. I absolutely loved that storyline this season. If you were into the first 2 seasons, definitely check out this season. I think this season's much stronger than the second season. But if you weren't down with it after season 1, don't bother with it. Same way with I said about Glow. I think it's a better third season. It's a better time out for them. But if you didn't enjoy the past seasons, then it's okay to let this one die. But unfortunately, me and Jay didn't get to see new movies this week because I was busy with my daughter and getting ready for school and trying to do fun things with her while we had her for a week. You were off on vacation, so we didn't get around to seeing new movies, but that's okay because this is going to be an extremely news and trailer park heavy episode because D23 happened this past week and so many things have come out from that. So Jay, let's head over and let's start breaking down our D23 coverage. And we're going to start with Disney stuff up front, but then we're going to get heavy into Marvel. All right, so a ton of stuff was announced over at D23, but before we get into that, Jay, there is some Marvel news that we want to start off with first. First and foremost, there were talks about Sony and Marvel continuing their relationship. Spider-Man Far From Home made over $1 billion, which means that negotiations were going to reopen between both of the studios. Far From Home ended the contract that was previously signed between Marvel and Sony back in 2015. Now, negotiations fell apart.
He must have given up, thrown in the towel, abandoned his sad little masquerade. I finally got to him. The power of the press triumphs.
There are a ton of rumors of what happened inside this closed room and in this meeting. Some people are saying Disney came to Sony and said, I want 50-50. We also get all the merchandising on the back end.
Well, they're doing all the work.
But we want 50-50. No, they're not. Sony's doing all the work. Sony's ponying up the money and Sony's doing all the work. Kevin Feige's coming in as an executive producer, giving a little bit of direction, but Sony's putting up all the work.
Okay, right. But you have Feige.
Right.
Which is massive.
Exactly.
On top of, they're piggybacking off of all of the MCU movies.
Right. And I don't,
which is also a big part of it as well.
Honestly, it's kind of my problem because I would actually rather a singular Spider-Man story. I love the character, so I want to see him. I want to see him without the influence of the MCU. So I'm okay with this all falling apart.
I'm honestly not surprised though, because it makes sense that they would come to some type of agreement. At least Disney would take some kind of sacrifice to complete their series, their saga, and it's over. Also, so now it's like, well,
there are conflicting reports. Other people are saying that Disney was asking for 25, 75. The previous deal was that Disney was getting all the merchandising on the back end, so they would only make 5% of the profits from every Spider-Man solo movie, and that's it. And they would make 5% on it. Now Disney was asking for whether it's 25 or 50, it doesn't matter. They're asking for more, but the merchandising honestly earns them more money than Sony is making on the film itself. Now, so it all falls apart. People are very doom and gloom, and they're like, well, that's it, it's over, Spider-Man's out of the MCU, how do we move forward and stuff like that.
Yeah,
just because negotiations fell apart once doesn't mean they're not going to reopen.
Cool. And I know, and I think Tom Holland was actually very optimistic. I think still, I mean, he did it and the right way,
and he
handled it very well,
and he should be, because look, Sony,
he knows the fans are supporting him.
Sony needed to jumpstart their Spider-Man reboot to do something different that they didn't do with the Andrew Garfield universe, and it's make it part of the MCU. It jump-started it, it got fans interested again, and it got fans trusting them again. And now that they are no longer tied with the MCU, they can go back to telling more personal stories about Spider-Man, more smaller stories and stuff like that. And it's the type of stuff you want to see from Spider-Man. It's the type of stuff you want to expect from Spider-Man. We've had the big MCU stuff, we've had the big MCU tie-ins, but I never felt like the character had a chance to breathe because he was always playing within a wheelhouse. Now he gets to be in his own wheelhouse, and we get to see him actually grow. So I'm actually kind of happy about it in that respect, because I love Spider-Man.
I agree. I'm very on board with that.
In another respect, I'm a little hurt because at this Far From Home it's kind of setting Spider-Man up to kind of be the guy, right? Like, he's the fucking guy.
It ended with a hell of a cliffhanger.
He literally has the Edie's glasses, but now because he's not part of the MCU, he can't use the Edie glasses. That is a complete fucking middle finger to Chekhov's gag.
Yeah.
You can't show a shotgun in
and revealing his identity
in the first act and not show it in the second act. No, they can still pick up on that, but they can't pick up on the whole Tony Stark storyline of he's the new Tony Stark.
Okay.
They can't pick up on that. They can't mention that stuff. It also makes me wonder whether they can use Vulture or whether they can use Mysterio, because those are technically MCU films. I'm sure they can because they are Spider-Man properties and never showed up in MCU films. There's a lot of things to like digest and like pull apart here, but I don't care whether Spider-Man is in the MCU or not. I really don't. I think the MCU can get on fine without him. I think Sony can get on fine without him.
I think it's over. I think Sony's just going to do their own thing. I don't think it's going to have any kind of more marriage with Marvel.
Like they found critical success with Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And I think that was very much their look, we can do it without you type thing. And they also now have a Spider-Man universe to build off. I'm not so crazy about Morbius, the living vampire and stuff like that, but I am interested in Venom 2 and the fact that Tom Holland now has 2 more solo Spider-Man movies that are coming.
I like the direction.
Yeah.
I
So,
do.
I do.
Because this Morbius movie
I
could be good. or
What
it
I
could be
worry
horrible.
about is when they keep trying to go back to the well too often and they want to build a universe around Spider-Man. I'm cool with that. But, be careful with what you...
Or they might go the Warner Brothers route, or the current one, where they're just trying to do singular films.
Right. You have a Spider-Man universe. Let's start using it, right? Let's start making a Spider-Gwen film. Doesn't necessarily need to be animated. We're introduced to the character. When Tom Holland is done with his next 2 films, let's move on to Miles Morales. Let's start looking into other aspects of the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need the MCU. However, if the deal ever is on the table again and maybe Disney's willing to let up on what they want in profits from it, then maybe they can reopen negotiations and we can get Spider-Man in the MCU again. Because I do love seeing the iconic Marvel character of Spider-Man next to the other iconic Marvel characters.
I know.
But the majority of our iconic Marvel characters are kind of done. We're not dredging the bottom of the barrel, but we are getting into the less
but they're also
general audience known characters.
But they're also scaling back. They're going more singular. They're not doing massive Avenger movies anymore.
Right.
So we don't need him.
Look, this news story is huge, but
it is huge.
At the same time,
I think when you really think about it, it's for the best.
I was expecting it. Like, it's the thing. Like, people were like shocked by it. I was actually expecting it because I knew, we talked about it when we reviewed Spider-Man Far From Home, that was the end. Like, that was it. He had a 2-picture deal with Marvel, 2-picture deal with Sony. They're going to move forward with them. And it's going to be Sony solo from here. And it's fine to me. I don't trust Sony, right?
No, you can't. You can't.
Because they've failed Spider-Man before.
Well, they've failed a lot of things before.
If anything,
Venom 1.
Spider-Man right now is in the best place it's ever been with Sony since Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2 era. So in the early 2000s. So it's not doom and gloom. There's a lot of stuff that you could look forward to with the character if you really enjoyed the character. For me, I actually like the idea of him not being part of the MCU and getting to tell more personal stories about Peter Parker and letting that character breathe and be his own without all this other MCU stuff weighing him down. Next news story. RJ, ton of stuff coming out of D23. Some actors like Sterling K. Brown were added to Frozen 2. We now know that Lizzie McGuire, that Disney Channel TV show that you and I were both too old to watch.
Hilary Duff. Right.
That will be returning, and she will be a 30-something professional living in New York. Don't care about that. Lady and the Tramp movie is also going to be coming straight to D23.
Adorable.
Trailer dropped. My favorite story out of that is the dog that plays Tramp was adopted from an adoption agency, trained, was in the job, and then was put up for adoption and adopted immediately by people. So that's an adorable story. But I like that they're putting a live action film directly to Disney Plus because I think that's where these live action animated remakes should exist.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers are too.
Exactly. I think they're testing. I think this is a test the waters type thing.
I think that movie in particular is going to do gangbusters on Disney Plus. But not so much in the theaters, perhaps, but that is the perfect property where you're going to see more people.
Could you imagine how many
the kids, the convenience of the kids, and also the parents?
Could you imagine how many people would join Disney Plus if they found out that, like, let's not say Lion King, but let's say they found out that Aladdin 2, right? The Aladdin 2 live action movie was only coming to Disney Plus.
Right.
So I think that's where these live action remakes should live. I think it's where they should go because we as a general audience are interested in them, but we don't necessarily want to pay $25 to go to an IMAX theater and
or
watch
drive
the same movie
X
again.
amount of miles to the theater and do the whole hoopla and may or may not have a horrible experience in there because of some schmuck sitting next to you or behind you. You know, like.
So I'm hoping that this stuff is there to just kind of like to gauge fan interest in it being on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And I definitely would want to check it out. Next news story. All right, Jay, it's official. We got news that isn't Disney related that Breaking Bad is coming back and Jesse Pinkman will be the center of the story.
Yeah, bitch!
And it's a Breaking Bad movie coming directly to Netflix. There is a trailer for it. You guys check it out. We don't have time to do a trailer part for it. What's that?
El Camino?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you know, is Aaron Paul in this movie?
Supposedly.
Because I was going to say, like, is it about finding Jesse Pinkman? And it's all those sub-characters and people trying to find him and blah, 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 blah. And get their heads wrapped around the whole situation of what happened in the aftermath. Because the trailer is simply his buddy. So I don't know if he's in it or if he's not.
Hey, Jay, he's 100% in it. Go look up El Camino on IMDb. Him and Vince Gilligan are the only ones on there. So, yes, he's 100% in it. This is a Jesse Pinkman central story. Also, rumor is that Bryan Cranston is attached to it. In what capacity? We don't know. But whether he's a Force Ghost.
Flashbacks? I know. I'm like,
we'll be talking about Force Ghosts later. We're going to hold off on that. But are you interested in returning to the Breaking Bad well? Because I'll be honest, I'm not, man. I know you watched Everybody Call Saul, and I didn't.
Right, Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is fantastic. It really is.
I'm sure it was.
It's draining.
Yeah.
It's an exhausting series.
I'm not sure if I want to come back to it. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if I do. I'm not sure if
this one might be a little bit more exciting and more enthralling
because it's continuation and not a prequel.
Yeah, and plus I think they're entering a little bit more of a dangerous world.
But let's face it, between Walter White and between Saul Goodman, the least interesting character that falls between them is Jesse Pinkman. Like, he's not interesting. Yeah, science, bitch.
I know. I'm definitely intrigued. Put it that way.
Luckily, it's coming to Netflix, so our barrier for entry is something we're already paying for.
That is exactly what I'm saying. Like, I'm really happy it's on Netflix because that's perfect for me. It's perfect. I'm not going to be sad or upset that I didn't like it after a few episodes or something like that. Or
now here's something
or the movie, like or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. I'll be able to just see it and then forget about it if it's not good.
Here's something that this made me wonder, right? This is an AMC TV show that is now going to be on Netflix. We know that a lot of the AMC shows go to Netflix after they're done. We also saw at Comic-Con that the Walking Dead movie that's going to have Rick Grimes in it because, spoilers, he survived in his season. If you're still watching the show, I'm not, but that's going to be coming to theaters. Something tells me that Rick Grimes movie that's supposed to be coming to theaters is going to wind up on Netflix. I think Netflix is going to be the one that bids most for it and gets it on there.
It'd be smart.
I think it'd be smart on Netflix's part and on AMC's part to sell it to them because I don't think that these movies would have legs in the theaters.
No.
I mean,
I'm telling you right now.
I'm trying to think, and like, where do these movies fall? Late, mid fall, or early spring, sometime in February. During
everybody
the lull,
that's watching this show is at home watching this show. They're not going out to the theaters and seeing it.
It's the same. It's the same thing with the Deadwood movie. When I found out they were making that and that was getting a theatrical release, I was like, why? And Warner Brothers obviously smartened up and was like, nah, come on. It's been 10 years since Deadwood ended.
Nobody would have seen it.
Let's put it on HBO. It was met with mixed reviews, even on HBO, where if you already have the subscription, you're getting it for free. I feel the same way about all of these, where this is the type of movie that streaming services were built to make.
Yes.
Where it's this middle of the road movie that fans are interested in. You know, it's the reason that Veronica Mars has come back and it's on Hulu now because that's the place where fans will go to watch it.
Lizzie McGuire.
Right. and new people aren't going to jump on, but it still exists for those people. And I think that, you know, the Walking Dead movie, Breaking Bad movie and stuff like that, Netflix is the perfect place for them. Next news story. All right, Jay, that's it for kind of like our regular news. We're going to now head over and get into our Marvel news because D23 had a ton of shit that came out. Marvel and Star Wars. And that was the bulk of the stuff that me and you and the majority of our listeners, I think, are going to be interested in. So let's get into our Marvel news. All right, Jay, Marvel news. First things first, we finally got a release date for Black Panther 2. I mean, obviously, the MCU film that made $1 billion was going to be coming out. But what's surprising to me is that it's coming out 4 years after the original one. This movie will not be released until May 6th, 2022.
Wow.
Do you
so
think
far off?
Do you think that the goodwill of Black Panther will kind of simmer by that point? Because I wonder the same thing. Like, how do you keep Black Panther alive in the MCU?
I don't think it's going to matter. I really don't. It's still going to do really, really well when it comes out.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it hurts Disney more than it hurts the fans.
Right.
Like, the fans are going to go out, and it's going to be another $1 billion+ movie for sure. Yeah, 100%. It's almost like a guaranteed lock. But I think it's hurting Disney for not taking an initiative on getting the early buzz and putting it in speedy pre-production with all the proper artists in place to get this out in a more sooner time.
Well,
because like this is a long stretch.
I'll be honest
for
with
a
you.
huge hit like that.
We're going to be going, like, our next Marvel news story. We're going to be going through some Marvel news, and I'm going to pepper in some things that might keep the zeitgeist alive for Black Panther moving forward. So
right.
Let's get into that.
Assemble.
All right, Jay, 3 new TV shows were announced at D23. So like me and you guessed, obviously at Comic-Con, they were only showing half of their cards. At Comic-Con, they revealed that Phase 4 would have shows like Hawkeye, Wanda Vision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and What If. Now, joining that is going to be 3 new TV shows. Those TV shows were announced to be Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, and She-Hulk. And the first one up, the one that has me most excited,
She-Hulk.
and the one that I think may have some ties to Black Panther is Moon Knight. So Mark Spector was a mercenary who was left for dead on a mission. He wound up surviving, and he was imbued with the powers of Khonshu. Khonshu was an Egyptian god. He's a god of vengeance. He's the god of night. He's the god of darkness, death, all things that are terrible and skullduggery. Like, he was the god of. And he winds up being imbued with these powers. But the cool thing about Mark Spector is that he may have powers. He may not. He may be crazier than a shithouse loon, Jay. He may be crazier than a woman who would actually date you.
It's true. True.
So, and the thing is about him is a lot of his comics fall under the Marvel Knights line, which is kind of like more adult themed comics. And with those adult themes comes a lot of violence. And, on Disney Plus, we know that they're going to be shooting for that PG-13 type rating.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to, I think it kind of cuts the balls off the character a little bit, former mercenary, current vigilante, operates very much like Batman does, but you're not going to let him have the violence.
It depends. It really does depend. I mean, they could do it. It's a fine line, though. That's the problem.
My favorite version of this character was the David Finch written and drawn comic that was back in. I think it was like 2006. It's a fantastic comic. You guys should pick it up. The art in it is absolutely fantastic. But I'm excited for this because I'm thinking that instead of an Egyptian god, I think they're going to make Khonshu a Wakandan god, which would give us ties to Black Panther. And I think that could be very interesting. That's obviously not anything that's confirmed, just a theory of mine. But I think that that's extremely interesting. Moving on. The other show that was announced, Miss Marvel. This will follow the adventures of Kamala Khan. She is a Pakistani American Muslim teenager. So she has shape-shifting abilities, stretching abilities, and these start to develop after she finds out that she shares genes with Inhumans. Now, that's interesting because they haven't mentioned Inhumans in the MCU for quite some time because the show was such a fucking failure. It absolutely failed. Didn't even get past the pilot. So I'm wondering if she's going to wind up having mutant genes, and this might be our small little step into a mutant world where we may have some mutant characters start showing up at the MCU, and our first little bit of insight into how Marvel will handle mutants post the Fox merger. But anyway, she's the fourth version of this character, and she is the one that's most recently present in the comics. And honestly, while looking at this, while I'm excited, I like this character. I like getting like this like little teenage story and stuff like that. She's clearly, Marvel and Disney's diversity higher. But I think Disney Plus is a nice way is a nice place for her to exist.
But you can get excited for this,
right? Because she exists in this PG-13 realm, but also she's Miss Marvel, like, so she's going to have ties to the Captain Marvel films. And the third and final show that they announced was that She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, will receive her own show. Now, Jennifer Walters was a lawyer who needed an emergency blood transfusion from her cousin, one Bruce Banner. And after that blood transfusion, Jay, she felt a little green under the gills. You see what I did there? Yeah. A little green under the gills? Yeah.
Aren't you slick?
But she's a superhero and another strong female character to be added to the MCU. She was an Avengers mainstay for quite some time in the comics. So that kind of has me excited to see her because she is the replacement for the Hulk. And I kind of see Mark Ruffalo getting pushed to the side a little bit, maybe in the background a little bit with his role as Smart Hulk, Professor Hulk and stuff like that, and being more of like a scientific liaison to the Avengers, and maybe not so much the guy that goes out there and throws a punch. Okay. Because he doesn't feel like that guy anymore. But she very much still will be. So that does it for the new TV shows. We got a little bit of expansion news as well for some of the other shows that were announced during Comic-Con. First off, we learned, Jay, that What If, they had some image teasers. They teased a zombie Captain America, obviously paying homage and probably getting into Marvel's Zombies, which was a big comic book hit. They also showed Peggy Carter inside of that Beta Rays, like
good old Peggy,
like that Beta Rays tank that that Captain America was in, where they get bombarded with the Beta Rays after getting the Super Soldier Serum. So she will actually be the one that receives the Super Soldier Serum. But they showed pictures of her, and she had a British shield. So everyone's now saying that she will be Captain Britain. We also saw images of a skinny Steve Rogers in 1942 being given an Iron Man suit that was built by Howard Stark in 1942, meaning he still technically takes power but becomes Iron Man instead of Captain America. And that's reminiscent of the Bullet Points graphic novel, which was written by J. Michael Straczynski back in the day. So it seems like What If is going to play like in this realm of like, this is the story that we told. Here is the alternate version. And each one of them is going to be half-hour long episodes, I'm assuming. And the interesting thing they announced about Disney Plus is that all their shows are going to be one a week, not going to dump it all on the streaming service like Netflix.
That's huge. So that's a big thing because Amazon,
I like it,
and also Netflix obviously just
but not
put
Hulu.
It all on,
but it obviously hasn't hurt Hulu because Handmaid's Tale is one of the biggest streamed shows, so it doesn't hurt them to release it one at a time. And this also I was reading something about how releasing one a week doesn't stop, it reduces piracy in a way, even though I find that hard to believe because one of the highest pirated shows was Game of Thrones, and that also was released weekly. So, but it's a reason for it. But also, I like the idea.
I just don't know if it's going to work through streaming, though.
But I like the idea of waiting.
It depends on the marketing. So, so for example, Netflix can't do it because their marketing is horrible.
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
So that's a reason right there. So if Disney knows how to fix that issue,
but I learned this.
It could work.
I learned this firsthand while rewatching Lost in a binge watch mode. I hated it. I didn't like it.
I understand.
Week by week, Lost worked. Right. In a binge mode, what Lost doesn't work.
Certain shows really benefit with that week off.
Here's the thing.
Absolutely.
I like the cliffhangers. I like waiting a week. I like being able to discuss something with somebody.
I do. Yeah. I miss it too. I really do.
I kind of like the
But overall, the biggest thing that I've been taking away from everything so far this year is that Disney really knows their shit. They are prepared, mapped out, and forking up the money to get.
Joe, why do you think they walked away from the Sony deal? Because they went, fuck off, Playboys. You make your Spider-Man movie, we'll still make money on your fucking merchandise. Fuck you.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's really impressive when you really think about it. This is some serious stuff and big stuff and big planning. And I mean, this took probably a good 4 or 5 years to map.
Doesn't matter. Buying into it. I know I'm buying into the evil corporation,
impressed.
But they're doing it well. They
are doing it well.
They're playing the evil empire well. I'm signing up. I'm building. I'm building Mickey Mouse statues. I'm going to Disney World this year. Next, all right. So next, that we got a little bit of expansion information on was we learned about a little bit more about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. We learned that Baron Zemo will play a large role in it. We don't know whether he's going to be an ally or a villain. He probably started out as a villain, become an ally, and I low-key think that they're trying to sneak in the Underbolts with Baron Zemo because the Thunderbolts were an organization that is basically like Marvel's Suicide Squad. The bad guys go onto the Thunderbolts, and they were led by Baron Zemo in the original comics. But he's going to look like his comic book counterpart. The purple ski mask, hood, the sword, the militaristic look. We also learned that Sharon Carter, Agent 13, played by Emily Van Camp, is going to also be joining the cast. Yeah. And they mentioned that John Walker, the U.S. agent, will also be appearing in the series. Now, if you don't know who John Walker is, U.S. agent is the guy who stepped in for Captain America when Captain America said, fuck off, America. I don't represent you. You don't represent me. I'm going off to play as Nomad. John Walker stepped in to be Captain America when Steve Rogers returned to the mantle. He became the U.S. agent. So he's going to be also a major part of the series. Now, the expansion that we got for Wanda Vision is honestly the biggest news drop of it secretly, because this is the show that people were not that excited for. They dropped a lot of information about it
to try to get people excited for it.
Worked 100%.
Yeah.
First off, we learned that it's going to be based on the Tom King run of Vision Comics, where Vision kind of built himself an all-American life with a nuclear family of 2.5 kids, suburban home, white picket fences. He built everything that 20-year-old Dave said he would never wanted, but secretly 33-year-old Dave absolutely is fucking jealous of.
Yes.
So we already know that the adult version of Monica Rambeau was announced for this series. She goes on to become a superhero that's called Blue Marvel. We also know that joining them along in this is going to be Kat Dennings, and she's going to be returning as Darcy from the Thor films. And rumor is that this series will actually follow Scarlet Witch, who was using her reality-altering powers to construct the ideal life for herself, much like the Vision did in his comics. And in this version, the Vision is still alive.
I wonder if she's going to keep that Russian accent.
I hope not. The events of the show are going to heavily influence Wanda Maximoff's character in Doctor Strange at Multiverse of Madness, which this is kind of giving me a lot of personal hope, because if she's building this fake life with the dead Vision, and reality altering powers, that means she's going to create the kids that go on to join the Young Avengers. I mean, that she'll probably make the kids Wiccan and Speed from who were in the Young Avengers comics, and they'll make their first appearance here. Now, we may finally get confirmation of a proper Young Avengers type property in the future. Now that we have an older Cassie Lang coming out of Endgame, Skrulls have appeared in Captain Marvel, which would give us Hulkling, and the possibility of Wiccan and Speed showing up in this. Also, Kate Bishop being announced for the Hawkeye film. All they need is for Patriot to show up in the Falcon Winter Soldier, and we would have the majority of the original Young Avengers roster for them to move forward with. Now, Young Avengers, I could see not being a Marvel movie, but being another Disney Plus TV show that they would wind up doing. Doesn't matter. I loved that comic written by Alan Heinberg. Check it out. It's worth it. It's a fantastic read.
Yeah, WandaVision I'm pretty excited for. I think it's going to be interesting. I always yearn for more with the movies with those two characters, and I love the actors.
I also like this idea of a psychological break.
Sure.
Where she uses her powers to create this world for herself, which also would get you into House of M, where she kind of loses her mind a little bit and whispers the words, "No more mutants," and destroys the mutant population, which this could very easily set up for the mutants to enter the MCU. There's a lot of things that like people low-key don't realize that like Wanda Maximoff as the Scarlet Witch was involved in. She disassembled the Avengers by losing her mind and creating reality-altering powers, causing Hawkeye's death and the Black Knights, and she disassembled the Avengers for 4 years until they returned in the new Avengers. So there's a lot of ideas that go along in the comic books that this could pay homage to and also bring into the MCU, and also bring in these characters like the mutants, like the X-Men or the Fantastic Four. Maybe not.
But let me ask you this. Does
also doing it in a funny like sitcom type way.
Is it only going to play in their series' wheelhouse? Like, it's not going to connect with other kind of series?
100%. I think all these series are going to wind up connecting. That's the brilliancy of what they're doing with Disney Plus. Is if you want to continue your MCU watching through Phase 4, you need to subscribe to Disney Plus.
If they really do that, that's pretty fucking genius.
You're not going to understand the MCU come the movies of Phase 4 if you didn't watch these series. I 100% guarantee you that you're not going to get a whole lot if you did.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Finally, the final bit of Marvel news that I have, we learned that joining his on-screen brother, Richard Madden, will be Kit Harington in the Eternals movie. So Jon Snow and Robb Stark are back together in the Eternals movie. Kit Harington will be playing Dane Whitman, the Black Knight. Also, in the Eternals, his love interest is Cersei, which is crazy to think of, but Cersei is his love interest, and he was an Avengers mainstay, the Black Knight, from the 1960s until the 1980s. And even during an interview, Kevin Feige kind of said he's going to make his premiere in the Eternals movie, but we got more of Kit Harington coming. He's going to play a larger role.
I think this is super smart on Disney's aspect, but also for Kit. Because I'm going to be... I know we haven't seen much of him, but
other than Game of Thrones, all of his other movies have been shit.
That's where I was going to get at.
Pompeii,
I think he is the type of actor like Chris Hemsworth, where I think his look and his acting ability
lend himself to this.
Works better on these big epic scale films than boutique films or even mid-range films that are going to be more character driven. Certain actors have to know, hopefully earlier than later, their wheelhouse and know how to just work it and work it well. Fuck, look at The Rock, biggest movie star in the world right now.
If you got a big dick, let me search it.
Seriously.
Find out how I gotta work it.
I mean, it's the most true thing, I think, that I hope people are now realizing in Hollywood and really just narrowing down your wheelhouse and just fucking stick with it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, there's only so many Daniel Day-Lewis's out there or whatever.
And let's face it, Kit Harington, he broods really well.
And he does.
And that's what he does well. And he works in an ensemble cast really well. And as far as carrying his own movie, that's not him.
They tried.
They absolutely did.
It all failed horribly.
It's never really...
Not necessarily for his fault. It's just... it just didn't work.
Right. I mean, the movies that he's been in,
but his name and his look still carries a lot of weight.
Now,
if you put him in a big cinematic title or feature or brand or whatever.
Right now, it carries weight, but soon it may not. So jumping on this bandwagon now and getting in on it now keeps him alive and keeps him in the zeitgeist, because the movies that he's made on his own, out of that, The Death and Life of John F. Donovan, huge failure.
Super small, weird indie movie.
MI5, big time failure for him. Pompeii, big time failure. Silent Hill, Revelation, big time failure for him. But you put him in an ensemble cast and you give him a role to play in that. And that role works within his wheelhouse like this role would, it's going to be perfect. Now, on the other flip side, Richard Madden, I see him as a bona fide star someday.
Yes. I mean, Bodyguard was phenomenal. That
on
show was really good. And he's just a beautiful dude.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that's it for me and Jay's Marvel news that came out of D23. I know there was like a ton of other news. We just don't have time to really get into all of it because me and Jay got to get a little drunk. We're going to have to start drinking our beers because we got Star Wars to talk about, and that is going to be a massive part of this episode, is breaking down all the shit from Star Wars.
But look, if you guys want to hit us up and talk more into depth about all this kind of news and information or whatever you want to talk about,
we got theories.
Just fucking hit us up.
We got ideas. We got brains.
Twitter, whatever. Just hit us up. You know how to reach out to us. Do it up. And let's talk.
All right, let's head over and let's get into our beers. Welcome back to the beer segment. Me and Jay got 2 beers that we are going to be reviewing for you. But before we do that, we've got to drop a line to our sponsor, Blowfish. Blowfish. You know how it goes. It's the only FDA-approved hangover cure. 2 tablets. You drop into 8 to 12 ounces of water. Let it dissolve. Drink that shit down. Your hangover starts to feel better immediately. If you don't want to get out of bed when you have a massive hangover and then make yourself this little tonic that's going to be fizzing and all that shit, you can actually take it the night before when you go to bed and wake up without a hangover. I've had far more success with it that way.
That's Dave approved.
That's right. So if you would like to cure the scourge of hangovers for good, make sure that you head over to 4hangovers.com. Use the promo code SMBFish. Get your 15% off and start curing hangovers for good.
I've learned my lesson, sir. I see now what I've never seen before. I'm cured. Praise God!
Super Movie Brothers is also brought to you by the Podcoin app. The Podcoin app is a podcast listening application that you can download on iOS or Android that allows you to listen to your favorite podcasts for free and actually allows you to earn points for each and every podcast minute that you listen to.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Each minute that you're listening to it, you're earning these points. These points can be exchanged for gifts for yourself, like gift cards, or you can donate it to charity, and you can be a charitable Chaz, just like Jay and I have become.
Oh.
So head over to iOS or Android and download the Podcoin app. All right, Jay, we got 2 beers that we are going to be reviewing for everybody. What beer are you drinking today?
Well, I found myself a nice little thing on the clearance rack. It is Breckenridge Brewing Company's Lucky You IPA. It is 5.7 alcohol by volume. It definitely has a complex little flavor palette to it. It's very smooth. It's very mild, but it has a little bit more of that malty kind of IPA flavor.
Melty or malty?
Malty.
Yeah, there you go.
It has 7 different hop varieties. And it's okay. It's an okay beer. I feel like it's just one of their like low rent IPAs that they made or something like that. It's nothing high quality, but it does the trick. It's solid. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
You know why it sucks, Jay? Because you're drinking a Bud, baby.
I know. That's true. We just recently found that out.
Breckenridge was purchased by Anheuser-Busch InBev in 2016.
That broke my heart.
Yeah.
That broke my heart.
Don't let it set you back. It's just,
it's just the name of the game, right?
It's just weird. Like, I look at that can and I'm like, what a shitty can. And you're like, it's a shitty beer. And I was like, yeah, you know what? The less creativity they put into the can, the less good the beer is, which would be a true statement if I wasn't drinking this Yards Brewing Company Loyal Lager. This thing is absolutely fucking delicious. Plain as all get out bottle. But
I know, but it's Yards, baby.
Dude, it packs a fucking punch. I really like it. It is extremely bold. It is dark in color. You already tried it. Why are you reaching for it?
I didn't try it.
God damn it. So this thing is bold. It is extremely slightly hopped, but it has like this very nice like little bitter finish to the end of it that I really enjoy. It's extremely dark in color, which is
proper lager.
It's a proper fucking lager, which like Yards always makes a lot of these beers that are just like traditional beers. They don't get too crazy with any of their ingredients. A lot of their recipes were developed in the 17 and 1800s.
Yeah.
So they don't innovate a whole lot. What they do is they perfect already existing recipes.
Right. Like the Brawler, for example,
right.
was a classic one.
And this one's just absolutely pretty. It's dynamite for a fucking lager, man. And I really enjoy their homegrown lager as well, which is their hoppy lager. This is only slightly hoppy. Like it does not even have a hint of hop up front at all. It's just a slight little bitter on the back end. I'm honestly, as far as lagers go, man, I am giving this a 4.25. This thing is fucking delicious.
Look out.
So, Jay, are you ready to get your lightsaber up?
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, because we talked about everything else from D23. We talked about Marvel.
It feels like so long since we talked about Star Wars.
Since we talked about Star Wars, I know.
Anything like Star Wars, anything.
And now it seems like
awesome.
with some of the news that's been coming out, we already touched on the Obi-Wan stuff like a little bit early on, but we're going to be getting Star Wars for quite some time on TV before we even see it again in the theater. So let's break down the new teaser trailer for The Rise of the Skywalker and the one that I'm more excited for, Jay, The Mandalorian.
Cut the beat and let the music play. No trailer park, shout out to Dave and Jay. I don't serve, but it's a newer wave. We've been on since trust God save the right style. I don't wanna flow until I know that the bass drop.
Yeah, Star Wars, man. It just makes me feel so good to be seeing more Star Wars stuff. It's been
and then some.
I know it's been like 2 years. It's been like 2 years. I got into Celebration and stuff like that a couple months ago, and it reinvigorated Star Wars for me for a little while, and then it kind of went away because I had to deal with the whole Marvel shit that was going on.
Of course,
tons of Marvel stuff, and now like all the Marvel stuff is done. I that's not coming out until after November. So I can focus on Star Wars right now, and that's where my headspace is. And seeing all this stuff, I'm getting giddy. However, out of these two Star Wars trailers that we are going to be discussing, obviously the Rise of the Skywalker and the Mandalorian.
One overrides another one as far as your anticipation. Or maybe not so much anticipation, but excitement from the trailer.
Crazy excited for the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like, I'm liking what I'm seeing.
I completely understand why.
I'm liking the cast. I'm liking, obviously Jon Favreau being behind the show. And I like the fact that they're confident enough in it going into it that during D23, they've already said, we're in pre-production for season 2 already. Like,
which is sick. And what's really cool about it for me is that this is more up my alley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And I think visually.
Well, you grew up watching Sergio Leone movies with your dad, right? Like you grew up, The Man with No Name, Hang 'em High, Outlaw Josie Wales, like all this like spaghetti Western stuff that this is deriving itself from.
Exactly. And I think this is probably going to be the grittiest thing that Disney Plus will ever have.
We talked about Moon Knight a little bit.
Well, sure. And but I mean, as far as whatever. But we'll see. But it's really exciting that this is like the first big thing and it's coming out, and I'm really excited for it.
But that's the Mandalorian. We're going to be actually ending our episode discussing that because I feel like there's a lot more to discuss there and digest there. But there's also a ton of stuff to digest and discuss here in our first trailer for The Rise of Skywalker.
He's passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight. Your journey. Nears its end.
All right, man. The rise of Skywalker is upon us.
Oh boy.
And, I kudos to them for at least giving us all new footage in this. There was a ton of stuff to go over in the original trailer, the original teaser trailer that we got, and they went ahead and they found they were able to give us a whole bunch of new footage that doesn't spoil too much, because I think that's going to be our problem going forward in this is we're not going to get a whole lot story-wise in any of these trailers. I mean,
why would you even want that?
Right. Missing from this trailer is Kerry Russell and her character, who we know she's playing some sort of scum and villainy, who also happens to be a friend of Poe Dameron. And then we also did not see Matt Smith, who for a long time, they were kind of saying like, he's in it, he's not in it. He's never confirmed that he's in it, all this stuff. And there's a lot of rumors about who he's playing. People believe he's playing some sort of dark side acolyte who is allowing himself to be possessed by Palpatine. But there's a lot of theories out there.
Well,
and
he's got the look for it. I mean, that would make sense.
I kind of want to stay away from theories a little bit while going through this trailer that we're doing here for this very special Star Wars trailer park. This is just what we see and breaking it down. So obviously the first thing that we get in this trailer is Luke Skywalker's, voiceover, where he's saying 1,000 generations live in you. It's kind of like, it's your story. And then later on in the end, we hear the Emperor saying your journey is at its end. While I'm sure that these are lines that are in the film and they're being told to some character, either Rey or Kylo, they're talking to us. This is meta.
Yeah,
they're talking to the audience.
It might not be in the movie. It doesn't really have to be.
Right. But they're definitely telling us,
Sure.
like this is the end. They're really selling hard that this is the end of the Skywalker saga. And that's what this movie and J.J. Abrams is intending this movie to do, is to bridge everything together. The prequel trilogy, the fucking trilogy, the one that we all grew up watching, and then this new trilogy. It's going to be bringing a close to all of that. And I think that also lends credence to the name The Rise of Skywalker, because this is the end of the Skywalker saga. So the first bit of new footage we see is Rey, Poe, Finn, Chewbacca, and C-3PO. They're on a desert planet. This desert planet is most likely Pisana, as they've said in some of the marketing material. It's not Jakku. It's not Tatooine, according to them. This is, those are two other desert worlds, Jay. This is its own desert world, which tells me that since, Star Wars has relied on a single typography for all of their planets, Endor is a forest moon, Hoth is an ice planet.
Mm-hmm.
We got Crate in The Last Jedi that was like this barren salt, plains, flatland that they were on. This is another desert planet. So Star Wars has run out of typography ideas, and it's just another desert planet.
Good.
So we see there that there's some sort of celebration that's going on with the planet's inhabitants, the Aki Aki, and which sounds like a Hawaiian fish. Be that as it may. And it looks like they're having some sort of like alien celebration, like some sort of like Burning Man. Like there's like these like chalk like fireworks going off, and it's very colorful. There is a giant like figure in the center of it that looks like a Burning Man about to be burned. And this might explain why C-3PO has bloodshot eyes later on, because he got down there, he got some Aki Jong,
partied it up a little too hard.
He needs some blowfish. He needs some blowfish. And that's what has C-3PO looking so haggard later on. Is that he just imbibed just a little bit too much, but the dude abides.
So yeah, all right.
Next, we see Carrie Fisher. And I got to say, like, first off, I was super worried about how they were going to be doing this. I knew they were going to be respectful, and I knew that they weren't going to be doing any CGI trickery to her face or to her body or anything like that. Like, they said that, you know, she would not be de-aged or anything like that. They wouldn't be doing a full CGI figure of her like they did for her in Rogue One. They said that every bit of footage that we got from Carrie Fisher in this movie will be footage of Carrie Fisher, either unused or being repurposed footage that they had already shot. So
yeah, I'm curious how they're going to do that.
I mean, we're seeing it here. The image that we're seeing here is actually an image from her in The Force Awakens. Her face and her body are her. That is actual film footage.
Right.
But her clothes and the background are new. That's digitally added, which I think is an extremely respectful way to do it. And it allows her to still act. It's still her acting in this role.
Yeah.
And so it's still her
This
face.
is the first time this has ever happened, ever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of odd to wrap your head around.
They're kind of like breaking new ground with it. But at the same time, like, I'm
sure it's a lot of work.
It's pretty flawless though. Like, and I like the way, and it's crazy to think that like we're 3 years in after her death. And it's like, and seeing her here, like, built up a little bit of emotion for me. I didn't cry, you know. I think I've cried about as much as I
Not
can
yet,
at this
but
point.
you know,
We'll
on opening day and Christmas time, you'll be.
But I mean, like, we just came off of doing our top 10 trailers, which we got our asses handed to us in the polls on that. And granted, it was run by the Countdown Pod's Facebook crew, who voted 44 to them and 10 to us. So you know, I think if I ran my own poll for that, we might come out on top.
I'm a little sour on that. Rematch? Come on.
Maybe someday. But maybe, like, you know, I don't have the emotion that I was describing when we were on the Countdown Pod that I had with the Force Awakens teaser. Like, I'm not getting any of that here. And I don't know what it is. It might be that I am a little bit worn on this series at this point, given this new, you know, sequel trilogy that we've gotten. But that's beside the point. The next thing we see is the Resistance fleet mobilizing. We see X-Wing, A-Wing, and B-Wing fighters. B-Wing fighters we haven't seen in this trilogy to date, Jay. And in front of them, we see this blockade runner, and it looks a lot like the Tantive 4. And that's the ship that was the first ever, like, image pretty much that appeared in a Star Wars film back in 1977. So the rumor is that this ship is the Tantive 4. It's not just any blockade runner. It is the fucking Tantive 4. And this was kind of teased by J.J. Abrams with some set photos. Next, we see rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of Star Destroyers. And the thing about these Star Destroyers that they're showing in this, like, with this kind of like blue backdrop, is that they are not Star Destroyers that we've seen the First Order using before. These are old school ones. These are the original trilogy ones. And it's got a lot of people wondering whether this is some sort of vision because of the way the rows are all perfectly straight and stuff like that. A little bit reminiscent of Rey in the cave, snapping her fingers and seeing herself in this perfect straight line with all different versions of herself. And there's other people who are thinking that, no, this is the Emperor himself controlling these Star Destroyers using a power that was seen in the old EU called battle meditation. Whatever it is, it's kind of like this haunting image, because the image we got before that was kind of like this ragtag crew of like a dozen ships maybe that look like they're barely holding it together, and they're going up against this militaristic power of the First Order and the old Star Destroyers like this. And they're very clearly in the same atmosphere, at least they're in the same scenes, because the next scene we see Jaina, who is possibly, you know, the little sperm that could of Lando's that made it in and made a baby. That's the big rumors that she is Lando's daughter, probably because in fandom and in Star Wars, there's not all that many people of color, Jay. I don't know if you know this, but like there's like Lando, and there's like Mace Windu, and there isn't any black people in the trilogy. So when you see someone, and it's true, and it's a black character, you're like, oh, bet you they're related to one of those two. And since Mace Windu was a celibate monk, pretty much, it's got to be Lando's little seed that could. Of course. And she's in the cockpit with Finn aboard a ship, and in the background we can actually see what looks like the top spire of like a B-wing, and there's that blue hue and lightning going on in the background. So kind of leading you to believe that this is all kind of from like the same type of battle. Next, we get like kind of like this quick shot of like a beam of energy that's very reminiscent of Starkiller Base from The Force Awakens that's hitting a planet's surface. And even though we're not seeing it fully, I don't think that this is full destructive power. So I don't want to say that there's another Starkiller Base, but perhaps there is another type of super weapon that they've mounted onto one of their ships, and they're firing it onto planets. But it just kind of seems like maybe baby Starkiller Base. Then the next one we see is Rey training in the forest. She has a training remote just like Luke did on the Millennium Falcon back in the day, and she clearly has something against trees. She's cut down one tree, then she throws a lightsaber at the remote, misses the remote. Mind you, the remote dodges it. She cuts through another tree, and then she calls it back to her hand. Now, one of the things that it's kind of cool about this is, even though lightsaber throwing is something like, as a Star Wars fan, you're so fucking used to. You know, they did it in the Knights of the Old Republic video games. They've done it in a lot of the comics.
But not cinematically.
Never cinematically. It's never been seen cinematically. And we're seeing it here in this trailer. When she catches it, she has a bandage on her hand. So
I really, really hope to see some badass fight sequences.
I hope so, because I'll be honest, like I watched.
She needs to have some like one of the most epic.
So here's one of the
fight
things
sequences ever.
I actually watched like recently. I watched this. I watched a stunt choreographer and like a stunt man go over that awesome like Praetorian Guard Red Room fight that was in the Last Jedi, and apparently that is a fucking stuntman's mess. Like, he was going over why that is like one of the worst big budget fight scenes he's ever seen in his entire life. And like,
they would know.
It ruined it for me. It honestly ruined it for me.
Well, you brought that on yourself.
I did, because I loved that scene when I came out of The Last Jedi, and then I watch it now.
It was one of my favorite things. But I'm not surprised, dude.
I'm catching these dudes like waiting for like Rey to like hit her cue, and he's like, okay, she's gonna hit her cue, so I'm gonna hit it, and everything's like a half step off. Everything's just like off, and it's like the only like, and he even said like the only redeeming part of this entire scene is her throwing that lightsaber to Ben and him catching it and just deucing that guy like right behind him. Yeah, and he's like, that saves the fucking scene. Like right there.
Yeah, I think I might have to watch that.
Yeah, just it's.
I think I actually caught that myself.
It's Corridor Crew.
It's one of those things where it didn't help that it was in slow-mo a lot of times too, and there was a lot of
the guy
weird cuts.
Is a stuntman who's been in
legit stuff.
Right, he's been in Winter Soldier. He was a stunt choreographer for the Punisher series, like, and he was Frank Castle's stunt double in that. So like he knows
top notch
action shit,
stuff.
Right. So
like, big time.
So when I'm watching this, and like he even like ends like
you and I love.
He ends like his rant like kind of like winking. He's like, yeah, Disney, like, give me a call for maybe some of these fights that you want to do in Star Wars movies. But I think you're right. You know, you're hoping for this type of action, for something that's a little bit less ballet, something that's a little bit more, something that's a little bit tougher, something that's a little bit more gritty, or something that's a little bit more harder. I'm hoping for that.
I gotta watch more of their episodes. Like, I'd be really curious to see what they thought of different kind of movies.
Yes, check them out. They're on YouTube. Corridor Crew. They are all special effects artists, and their show kind of started out as special effects artists watching bad CGI, which is fun as well to check out.
Sure.
So Rey has this bandana on her hand. She either has an injury, or my theory is that she too got into the Aki Ganj, and she joined a gang, and that's her Aki gang. Colors, man. That's her Aki gang colors, When she goes back on Pisana, she's got safe passage. Next, we see Kylo just kind of like brooding, He's still like the very angry kid, strikes up his lightsaber.
Of course.
Walking away from his TIE Fighter Advanced. Lightning.
Somebody stole his lunchbox.
Yeah. Lightning is striking in the background, just so you know that the atmosphere is reacting to his inner turmoil as he walks towards the screen. This is the moment where we get Emperor Palpatine's voice, and he says, "Your journey is near its end." But we don't really know who he's talking to. Then we get, the scene of Rey and Kylo like squaring off, right? They're squaring off and there's waves crashing all around them. Again, the atmosphere is matching the turmoil, right? Like there's massive waves crashing over and they're fighting on what looks like the wreckage of the Death Star too, because we saw that image in the last teaser of the radial dish of the super weapon that was attached to the Death Star 2 on this ocean pretty much. And now we're seeing them fight on it here. And the reason we know that it is a part of the Death Star is because off on the left, we can see what looks like a turret, the same turrets that fired at the X-Wings that were doing the trench run in A New Hope. So that's what makes everyone think that this is the Death Star.
Yeah, it made me actually reminded me a lot of the Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it was like At World's End or something like that.
Okay.
Like the third one.
You're going to a strange place here, but...
Well, because at the time, it was a massive, expensive set piece where it ended the film on the ocean with this big, epic fight sequence. And for some reason, the way the water was, I don't know, it just reminded me of that fight sequence with Captain Jack and whoever the fuck it was, Barbossa or somebody.
Because Captain Jack will get you high tonight.
I don't know why it flashed back to that.
And take you to your special island.
Yeah.
So anyway, it looks like that they're going to be having their big final showdown, or at least something tells me this is like midway through the movie, because I low key have like a theory that Kylo is going to turn good, and I don't like it. I actually don't want that to happen, but looks like it may happen. But anyway, we then see Rey, the final shot, in a black cloak, looking very much like, Darth Maul did in that fucking tits scene that was in episode 1, where he takes off the hood and you get the dun dun dun, the beginning of the Duel of the Fates, and she has a lightsaber in her hand, and it's got two blades.
Is this a new one?
So, all right,
have you seen this before, like on
this type of lightsaber? Actually, I have. This type of lightsaber looks a lot like Pon Krell's lightsaber from the Crisis on Umbara arc from the Clone Wars. He actually is a four-armed type of Jedi. He's the same creature as what's his name, Jexter Dexter. The guy who warned you about seeing all those cloners out in the Outer Rim. So Pon Krell has like these. They are double-bladed lightsabers, but they fold up, and he can use them singularly, and this is very much the same way. So it's got a very unstable red blade, much like Kylo's, and she kind of unfolds it, and the trailer ends. And, you're left to think like red lightsaber, bad guy, but there's a lot of theories that are going on out there, and I don't want to get into them too heavily, but I did have to ask our listener community over on Twitter what they thought of this. So, Jay, it's time for Question of the Week.
Ooh, yeah.
You could ask yourself the question, do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
It just raises too many questions.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything.
All right, so we reached out to all of our listeners on Twitter, and we asked, in the new Star Wars Rise of Skywalker trailer, we see Rey, she's possibly fallen to the dark side, or this could possibly be a vision from her Jedi trials. Let us know what you think. And we got a lot of people reaching out to us. In Session Film Podcast said that it was a vision. Shaken Nut Nerd said that he has an idea, and he sent me a gif of a clone trooper. So he's obviously saying that he believes that she is a clone. At BishopMan69 said it's obvious that she wants to be Darth Maul Part 2, but then who wouldn't want to be? Movie Reviews in 20 Questions says it's Rey's evil twin sister who's been secretly trained by the Force Ghost of the Emperor and has just been hanging out, sithing around. Can you literally tell that was the only idea I could come up with? Weird With You Podcast said Palpatine was experimenting with babies on Mustafar, and we know that he supposedly learned the secret to Sith immortality from Darth Plagueis the Wise before killing him. Maybe she is a clone or a vessel of some kind. That's why she has no parents. That could also mean that this possibly is not her. It's a lot in there. Sure. The theories are so vast and deep on this. It's a Jedi vision and a whole lot of nostalgia coming our way. Next one comes from at Horror Show Podcast, Real Horror Show Podcast. They said she's going to fall to the dark side for about 10 minutes, which is going to be just long enough for Disney to push all that new merch. Drinks with Larry says this is her vision in the cave, much like The Last Jedi showed her who her parents were. She is a clone, and Rey is in the trailer is the original person. So they're kind of saying that, like, what Drinks with Larry is saying is that, you know, we got that vision in The Last Jedi where she's looking at multiple versions of herself and they're all doing the same thing, which he's saying is kind of leading credence to the fact that she may be a clone. At Rob N. McCormack, he says this is Palpatine's attempt at screwing over the galaxy. And after his defeat in Return of the Jedi and the fall of the Empire, Palpatine is actually still alive and has hatched the ultimate endgame revenge plot, the annihilation of half the galaxy and all of his enemies. This is his last shot at absolute galactic rule. And where did that lead you? Back to me. And then Comics Vision said it's a vision similar to what Luke saw on Dagobah. He went to kill Vader, and when he looked upon the mask, he saw himself. It's something similar in what could happen if she fell to the dark side. I Am Geek at I Am Geek Show said if you slow it down frame by frame, you can actually see a blurry image on the right that mimics Rey's lightsaber arm. It's a little bit of a mirror force image, much like we saw in The Last Jedi. I believe it's a vision of what could happen, but is not reality. So there was something else that I noticed, but I'll get into my little theory towards the end here. As a good friend once told me, it's more than likely a misdirect, and I think that is 100% true. At Mets fan, that's Mets with a Z, says Star Wars has always been a story of light versus dark, and she embodies the light the way Luke did in the original trilogy. If she falls, there is no light. I say it's a vision, and my daughter would be destroyed if she fell, so I'm hoping that she doesn't. Finally, at Batman McGrath says, first, I like some parts of the trailer, but not the whole thing. Second, no, she is not going Sith. Most likely a dream or a vision. Has no one seen Empire Strikes Back? And third, Rey promotes deforestation. It's in the trailer, which is 100% true. We also had one where someone said that they believed that it was Kerry Russell, which actually Lauren thought that when she first saw it, because Rey looks a little gaunt. She looks a little pale. It doesn't really look like Rey, but it is 100% Rey, at least. My theory, Jay, would you like to know mine or what's yours? Do you have a theory?
I can't do theories.
So my theory
terrible
is
with that.
This is a Force vision, like in a cave. You know, it's very similar to The Last Jedi, very reminiscent of The Empire Strikes Back. I do believe that this is some sort of Force vision, although I also believe that it is going to sell some toys.
Are you? Wow. I mean,
merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
Spaceballs the flamethrower, and my favorite, Spaceballs the stuffed doll. May the Schwartz be with you.
And look, again, it's a great cliffhanger.
It is. It is.
Great way to end it.
It is. It's a nice hook to get us in our seats. But I do think I do think that it's a Force vision. I know a lot of people think that it's a clone, and it does have something to do with Palpatine's plot, and it very well may. I just really feel like it's a Force vision, and man, it's just it is so deep that if you start going down the rabbit hole of theories, you're gonna lose perspective.
Your mind probably too.
You're gonna lose perspective on what's important.
Sure.
And it's that it's going to have some greater resonance into the story, whether it's a vision or whether she's a clone. And
either way, you're not going to know until you see the movie.
You're not going to know until you see it.
Like that's what Disney does. They fuck with you. Like, these are strictly to get your butts in the theaters.
We talk about it with Marvel.
That's it.
Now, I'm not saying in this case
they're not spoiling.
But we talk about
story.
with Marvel trailers a lot how they digitally take out things or add things in to hide secrets. Now,
all the time.
We don't talk about that a lot with Star Wars trailers. Now, I'm not saying that this is some sort of like fake out or anything like that. I'm sure that this is 100% something that is in the movie, but there's certainly there's certainly a misdirect that is going on here because they're not going to put it flat out for you like that. It's like no. Rey falls to the dark side. It's something deeper with a little bit of layers, and
And either way, it's a cool visual, and it's more interesting.
Also, another thing
to discuss and talk about. And
also, another thing that makes me think that this is a vision. She has an unstable lightsaber, much like Kylo Ren's, right? So that's the only version of red lightsaber she's ever seen. So of course in a vision hers would be unstable, but why wouldn't it just be a straight solid beam like her old lightsaber?
Well, she was always a staff girl,
right?
Remember?
But that has nothing to do with the blade. It has nothing to do with the beam.
Well, I don't know.
So it has it's unstable like Kylo's. And someone did tell me, I'm sorry I didn't get to it and I didn't get their name from Twitter, but someone was like, what if this is Kylo Ren's lightsaber repurposed after his death, and that red lightsaber doesn't necessarily mean bad or good, it's just something she's using as the new Skywalker.
Right.
Okay. Fair. All things are.
It's a good theory.
All things are possible, and we all have nothing to back up these theories.
Zero.
We're just super excited. We're just geeks. So I want to thank everybody who reached out to us on Twitter to answer our listener question of the week. Jay, we got another trailer to get to, man. The meat and potatoes, the one that I am extremely excited for. We have the Mandalorian trailer.
Let's get into it.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The man with no name, the outlaw, the Mandalorian.
I want it now.
I know. It looks so fucking good, man. And I gotta say, like, the cast is pretty fucking stellar in this shit, man.
Yeah, and I think Disney knows what they got on their hands right now, and they're going full steam ahead.
We don't see Pedro Pascal at all, who is cast as the Mandalorian.
Smart.
We only see him in his costume with the helmet on. And I don't know if you noticed this, Jay, but I did make you, about a year and a half ago, I made you watch Star Wars Holiday Special.
You did.
One of your movie homeworks. Did you happen to notice that the Mandalorian looks an awful lot like the first appearance of Boba Fett in that animated short that was part of the Holiday Special?
Extremely.
Yeah, he does. The helmet looks like it. It's silver like that. Obviously, the T-shaped visor, which is something that is iconic to all Mandalorians. But he has a blaster pistol on his right side, much like Boba Fett did in that, but he also has like this forked gun that Boba Fett had in that animated special, and that's the gun he's going to be using throughout the Mandalorian, which means first off, it's going to have dual purposes. It's going to be a rifle, but it's also going to have some other purpose, probably like a shock prod or something. But I thought that was extremely interesting, paying
something
a little
tactile, because you don't necessarily want to kill,
right?
You know, your work,
but immediately it's already paying homage to Star Wars of yesteryear, and even the darkest, deepest corners of Star Wars of yesteryear.
And that's dark and deep.
Some of the stuff that we would like to forget as Star Wars fans, they're like, nah, we're going to pay homage to it. Why not? I don't care. You know, I could picture Jon Favreau being like, I remember staying up all night to watch that when it premiered on ABC and being upset and angry. But I liked that Boba Fett cartoon because when me and you watched it, was the only part we liked.
And that's exactly... Right. And that's all it takes to get the geeks super on board with this, you know, and be really hyped on it and pay service to the fans.
The thing I always took away from that animated special was that they made Han Solo look a lot like Mick Jagger.
Oh. Well, you know, at that time, you know.
So also joining this cast is Ahmed Abtahi. He is playing Dr. Pershing. Bill Burr is in an episode of this, and Bill Burr has a great interview when he was being asked about Star Wars, and he's like, look, I fucking hate Star Wars, okay? He's like, I didn't see it when it came out. I saw it when I was like 27 years old. I fucking hate it. He's like, he doesn't like Star Wars. And it's interesting that just because you don't like Star Wars, that doesn't mean that you can't still put a good performance in on it. So, but he's going to be playing some sort of bounty hunter character. We've got Gina Carano in this as well. People remember her from Haywire, but probably more so from Deadpool, you know, where she had a...
You're going to do superhero landing. Wait for it. Woo! Superhero landing.
Murder on the knees. And then we get Giancarlo Esposito, who is playing Moff Gideon. So we'll get into him later on. Werner Herzog, you know, famed Werner Herzog director, big time into documentaries. We got Nick Nolte in this, and these are my two favorite castings that they've done for this entire series. We get Taika Waititi, and we have Carl Weathers. The Carl
this is big stuff.
Fucking Weathers, man. Carl Weathers is going to be playing Greef Karga, and Taika Waititi is going to be playing IG-11.
Yeah, he looks fantastic, and obviously Taika is going to do a fantastic verbal performance again.
Oh yeah. So the way this trailer starts off is absolutely lovely. It's gorgeous. I love it. So it's taking place sometime after Return of the Jedi, but not too far. You know, we're not into the building of the First Order or the Resistance yet, and there is no new Galactic Republic that's taken over. But you know, the Empire has fallen. So we get this image of all these like bloodied stormtrooper helmets sitting in the sand, put on spikes.
And if you get so much as a whiff of treason from any of the rest, head spikes walls.
Yeah.
And this is very clearly Tatooine. You can tell by the architecture, the rounded rooftops and stuff like that are in the background there. And it kind of tells you about people's thoughts on, you know, the Empire and the falling. The next image we get is a ship that's flying over lush green forest. The ship is called the Razor Crest. This is the Mandalorian ship, and it kind of is reminiscent of the drop ships that the clones used in the Clone Wars, but it looks like it's been a little bit repurposed here. We get this image of the Mandalorian just kind of like slowly walking away from his ship over these arches as he heads into some outer rim world. And it seems like what's going on is that in the outer rims, the Empire has found some foothold, has found some way to survive. It's splintered apart. But these Moffs, like Giancarlo Esposito is playing, are clearly like cutting themselves out small swaths of the galaxy in the outer rim to continue to survive. We then see Carl Weathers kind of like offering the Mandalorian a little bit of money, and the character that he is playing in this, Greef Karga, he is one of the higher ups in the Bounty Hunters Guild. And one of the things they were saying is that throughout this, the bounty hunters are kind of at a loss. With the Empire gone, there's no one really putting bounties out on people. So they're not getting paid as much as they used to. And it's not even enough to like put fuel in your ship, you know, to resupply yourself after a hunt. So it's kind of like desperate times out there for everybody, not just the Mandalorian himself, but the people in these outer rim worlds.
Oh yeah.
You loved the shot where it's kind of like flying over like this desert that's like all cracked, but it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's like what you would see if you were walking in a dry desert, but just on like this grand scale.
Yeah,
like
on a grander
deep
scale.
Canyons.
It has a really cool cinematic look.
And then we get a shot of Gina Carano, and she is playing Cara Dune, who is a former rebel shock trooper and now bounty hunter. You know, so he obviously surrounds himself in this world of scum and villainy. And then we get to see Nolte's character, who actually he won't appear in this show. It's just his voice. He's lending his voice to an Ugnaught. You may remember them as the guys who dismantled C-3PO in The Empire Strikes Back. And he's riding on the back of like this two-legged dewback. You'll have to forgive me, I forget the name of the creatures, but they first premiered in the Clone Wars in the Ryloth series. So then we get to hear like kind of like Werner Herzog's voice, right? He's playing like this like leader of like some sort of like outpost, some sort of town, and he's kind of offering the Mandalorian a job, and he's saying like, you know, bounty hunting, it's dangerous. He's got
a great
business.
voice.
It's hard work. Yeah, I love it.
And seeing him on screen again, it's really cool.
And apparently what the story will be is that Werner Herzog will be hiring the Mandalorian to find a bounty for him. He's going to want them dead or alive. He's going to want them alive, but if they have to come in dead, he wants proof of their demise. And it's going to turn out to be a little girl. We actually get a shot of her mother kind of like hugging her in a river, and it looks like she's hiding from some sort of threat, possibly the Death Troopers that we get in the next scene, the Death Troopers from Rogue One. And I'm thinking that what's going to happen is obviously the Mandalorian, even though he's this rough, tough, gruff guy who is out for a kill and out for money and out for himself, is going to find a little bit of heart and maybe not take this bounty and start to protect this little girl instead of killing her, which is going to, of course, make him run afoul of the Bounty Hunters Guild and his so-and-so, so-and-so called friends who are going to be coming after him.
Right.
We get this wonderful shot, and I love this shot of the Mandalorian just kind of, his hand is on his holster and he's tapping it with his finger, and off in the distance, blurry, we can't see who it is. It looks like it may be another Mandalorian that he's going to be having a duel with. Then we get to see Giancarlo Esposito in his Imperial outfit, looking very Grand Moff, looking very much like the leader of this group of Imperial remnants with Death Troopers behind him. And then some of the final shots that we get, we see like the Mandalorian and IG-11, who will be voiced by Taika Waititi, cutting into a wall pretty much. This like wall falls out and they just kind of like walk into this bar, clearly getting ready to start some shit. And then we cut to a shot of IG-11, and the way his head moves is he can look forward, he can look backwards, and he's got arms on these swivel ball joints, so he's firing forward, he's firing backwards at the same time. That, like, the action in this looks like it's going to be fucking crazy. And then we get the final shots of this where, the Mandalorian is surrounded by stormtroopers, and he's told that it's 4-1. And he says, I like those odds. Yeah. And it's a really cool scene where like he's both pointing that fork pronged rifle at one stormtrooper's face. He's got his gun, his pistol off in another direction. And we get to see him fighting as he's taking down a Quarian. Those are the squid face guys. And there's a guy running out the door. And I love the way he throws his wrist rope out at him, catches him, and pulls him back in, just like Boba Fett did in Return of the Jedi. And as he does that, the door is closing on the guy. And it looks like it's going to be cutting him in half. Just kind of giving us a taste of the brutality of the Mandalorian's world that they're going to be selling us here in the show. We also see images of what looks like a row of people frozen in carbonite. Some sort of idea he may have picked up from some other Mandalorian along the way. Or maybe after they did it to Han Solo, it kind of just became like standard practice for people to do that. It's a safe way to transport your prisoner cargo, especially because you're not going to have to feed them. You're not going to have to clean up after them. You don't have to even like really keep them alive. All you got to do is keep them locked up in this. The trailer ends with Werner Herzog's voiceover, and we get the title card, The Mandalorian over this desert, and we see the twin suns behind us. Another reason why I think it's Tatooine. And it closes out with Star Wars music, and this, Jay, seems to be everything I've wanted from additional Star Wars content. It seems very reminiscent of Rogue One in tone. In tone, cinematography, it seems very reminiscent of Rogue One.
It really does. And it's all the stuff that we loved from that movie, even though the movie may not be perfect for everybody, but I think everybody can agree that a lot of good stuff was in there. And I think all the good stuff that was from that movie, we're seeing a lot of good stuff in this one as well.
I've had a lot of time to grow with Rogue One, and I think I've realized that post the original trilogy, it's my favorite Star Wars movie.
Well, I think it did a good job at breaking the mold.
It did.
And I think it helping fans start that process of disconnecting a little bit. They had to rip the Band-Aid off at some point, and I think it was a good feature to do it with.
Yeah.
And look, I had fun with it. It was a great, fun movie.
And
the reshot hour was fantastic. That Vader fight sequence will stand. God damn, that was sick.
Yeah, right. And
they're the best things ever.
And I think they're doing it again here. This is the first Star Wars content that's going to be premiering on Disney Plus, and they're breaking the mold with Star Wars again, while doing a lot to pay homage to a lot of Star Wars stuff that has come before it. It's going its own way. It's going in a different direction. It's doing things differently than Star Wars has done before, while still making you feel comfortable with the world.
Sure.
And selling you on this new character, on this idea, like Mandalorians for fans, like Mandalorians are the most badass people in the galaxy, like most people who just watch the movies. Boba Fett was a guy who was in Empire Strikes Back, and then he's a guy who kind of like got punked by Han Solo and fell into a giant space worm's mouth. Like that's what happened to him. But for us who have delved into his character in ancillary material, like we've grown to love like what Boba Fett is, and this seems to embody everything you've ever wanted to see from a Mandalorian character in this show. And I can't wait to watch it. I am a Mando fan. Like, I do love Mandalorians. I love their lore. I love a lot about them. I love seeing this here. I love seeing one of them in action. And I love the fact that they're keeping the mystique of the character like they did with Boba Fett by not showing Pedro Pascal's face and barely hearing him talk.
Very smart.
He's speaking with his actions. And that's very much spaghetti Western. And that's also very much the way a Mandalorian, you know, in a proper Star Wars is treated with an air of mystique. And I'm sure we'll see Pedro Pascal's face in this. I'm sure we'll hear him talk, but I don't think we're going to see that humanity from him in the first episode. I would actually say like the first episode will, at the very end, will probably be when we see him unmasked. We're probably going to see him not talking and going through a day in the life of like a bounty hunter and all this bombastic action that he gets involved in.
I think this trailer just proves that Jon Favreau has a perfectly great hand and understanding of what he's trying to do, what he wants to do, and
I know you didn't
servicing us as the fans.
I know you didn't see anything from Star Wars Celebration, but when he talked about the Mandalorian at Celebration, you know, he was talking about how sure the Razor Crest ship, they could have very easily and done it really well, gone to a visual effects crew and had them render that in the computers and make it look as real as they did, but he was insistent that they build models and they make the engines actually work with real LED lights and moving parts. And they spent days just filming that ship, the Razor Crest, in the same exact way that George filmed X-Wing battles back in the day. He spent an entire days doing that and development. Yeah. And it was probably more expensive than computer generating it, but that's how serious he was about making it feel like the Star Wars you've gotten before. Yeah. And to me, that would shows what the type of mentality he came into this with. I mean, he's been involved with Star Wars for years now. He's been the voice of a Mandalorian pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars and actually wrote some of those episodes. He also had a moment where he's like, I need a lot of stormtroopers. I need a lot of stormtroopers on set. And it turns out that Disney actually doesn't have a whole lot of stormtrooper outfits to outfit extras and stuntman in. So he's like, what are we going to do? He's like, I need all these stormtroopers. And one of his crew members is like, hold on, I know some people. They called up the local 501st Stormtrooper Legion, and they got a whole bunch of guys who cosplay as stormtroopers with realistic stormtrooper looking outfits. And Jon Favreau said the way they looked, he couldn't even imagine having the costume department come up with it. He what the costume department would have came up with would have been kind of like hokey. They would have
sleek,
right? They would have rubber helmets. Like the guys who were off in the back would have rubber helmets. All of these guys came decked out like real stormtroopers and
having the time of their fucking life.
Right. And not only that, they now get to say that all of their armor was screen used, which immediately jumps its value up like crazy big. And they had the greatest day of their lives doing it. And they all did it for free. And he got the shots that he wanted with all these stormtroopers. So that is the level of person that you're dealing with.
I can't wait to see this shot now.
When he comes into
why he needed this
to show run this, that's what he's bringing to the table. And that has me very excited.
It's all about the creator.
Right.
Showrunner, creator, whoever you want to call it. Feige, the TV show, the showrunners on those things are so important.
Right. And it has me very excited that they were willing to announce that we're already in pre-production on season 2. That's so great. So reach out to us on Twitter, on the social medias. Let us know what you guys think of The Mandalorian if you were just as excited as me and JR. You can find me on Twitter at SuperMoviePod. You can check Jay out on Facebook, Super Movie Bros Podcast on there. Make sure you head over to Instagram. You check out Super Movie Bros Beer. Jay will have pictures of the beers that we drank tonight there for you guys to check out our reviews.
Yep.
Make sure you head over to my Instagram, Movie Cocktail, where you can check out last week's Alien cocktails that we put up, the ones that Mark made for Geiger's Cup of Joe, and the one that I made, the Alien Face Hugger. We also run a Patreon, so you can head over to patreon.com/supermoviebrospodcast, and for just $1 a month, you can get all that additional content that we put up there. Also, we have to just beg that anybody who listens to the show, if you've listened more than a few weeks in a row, please consider going on to iTunes, leaving us a 5-star review. It helps us grow. It helps us get seen. And it just all around makes me and Jay both feel really fucking good.
Yes.
And
puts a smile on our face.
Right. And because we're adult men, you know, we don't know where to find drugs anymore. Like, you know, we're older. We don't know where to find drugs to feel good.
Yeah.
So we're left to drinking and your kind words. That's where we get our C-3PO red eyes now.
Yeah, it's not the women in our lives. It's the booze.
It's the booze and
each other.
It's your
and you guys.
It's our booze and your reviews. So please head over to iTunes and leave them. I want to thank all of you guys for listening tonight. The Trailer Park music that we played was provided to you by Thomas Iannucci. So make sure you head over to Spotify or check the description of this episode. Follow a link. Check out all of his music over there. He's a fantastic friend. He's a fantastic artist. And we just want to spread the word about him. We are also part of a network. We are part of the Podfix Network. So head over to podfixnetwork.com. Check out all the great shows that are part of the Podfix Network over there. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.